You're listening to the Homeboys podcast, recorded in our Indiana office and with combined 40 years of experience. Here's your hosts, Clint and Scott.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Homeboys podcast. Another podcast in a row. My business partner and normally the more charming host, Clint Wetherell, is in Florida with his family. So today we have a special guest, which is Barry Hines, our rehab superintendent. How are you, Barry?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah?
Really excited, yes.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hesitate to introduce you as our rehab superintendent because the truth is you are a licensed broker. You are a rehab specialist, obviously. You help with a local bank, a regional bank, handle their foreclosure work.
Right.
You are basically a real estate all-around kind of guy. What do they call it? A Renaissance man?
It's a little bit of a stretch, maybe like a pocket knife. You know,
Yeah.
You got a few different functions built in, and just do the best with what you can.
Yeah. So you've been with us since the beginning of RWA, but before that, you were kind of Clint's right-hand man for all those years.
Yeah. Tagged along. Got out of school at the worst possible time in 2008 to try and find a job. Went from thinking I was going to be a geography professor to quickly changing tune to become a real estate broker, very green, wet around the ears, and got into it with Clint and kind of followed him around and learned the tools of the trade and started rehabbing some houses with a family member of mine and kind of just never looked back since. Yeah,
you got into it by being a doer.
Yeah.
You just went out there and just did it, and made it happen.
Yeah. It started off, being, just boots on the ground, being the one to do all the work, and I've gotten as far away from that part of it as I can now. Sometimes get called in, but just kind of manage the people that do it now. So.
Well, you definitely are truly a utility player. You could literally do every job within the company there is with your experience, and that's something that I think Clint and I feel strongly about that we have as skills, which is we could kind of fill any role. But you are kind of the star, though, when it comes to the rehab and contractor world for us.
Yeah, it's a very involved job. A lot of different moving pieces, but to simplify things is just babysitting contractors and
herding cats.
Yeah, making sure that everybody stays happy and in a completely changing world where we're in, where we're doing something different, kind of all the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
So let's kind of go through a step-by-step process of the important parts of managing rehabs and working with contractors. And to start, let's just start with the most important thing, which is picking contractors.
Right. I've always said it. Probably the hardest part about my job is grooming a new one.
Yeah.
Different contractors have different philosophies on, when they should be paid, how they should be paid, what they want to do with certain things inside of a house. There's just a mixed bag every time you start with somebody. They have their own ingrained way of doing things that I have to quickly try to break down and get them to do things our way. So hardest thing is definitely grooming those new contractors, which is why we've gotten to the point where our guys are our guys. And
I think we're pretty unusual. When Clint and I travel the country and meet with, on these speaking circuits, and we meet with other groups like ours, it's genuinely the number one topic, which is they're always talking about interviewing new contractors, getting new contractors, how hard it is. And I think some of this credit needs to go to you, but we've held on to the same core contractors really for our whole careers.
Right.
We do have to add some, especially when we expand in new areas. But, at the end of the day, we've got our core group of contractors, and that's that. And so breaking down the new ones is incredibly difficult, which is part of the reason we hold on to them. So what's the difference between a good and a bad contractor? How can you tell?
Obviously, the attention to detail is something I'm very strict about with our guys. You get a bid on a house and certain contracting groups like to just tell you, well, I'll be able to do it for this amount and gloss, very briefly over the points of the rehab. Well, I like to see it written out. Very strict about, knowing what we're getting into and knowing what we're paying for. So good contractors are going to itemize, the bids, let me see where the money's being spent very clearly. Bad contractors can be much more vague and you end up, you thinking you're getting a certain type of flooring, whereas, and then you walk in and it's, some hideous looking, vinyl or something like that. I mean, it's happened and, you end up having to redo it and whatever else. But, the other thing with bad contractors, I mean, you'll pick up on just little hints and it'd be hard to really, put a pin on exactly what it is. But, I'd like to think, being in the business and meeting enough people, being a good judge of character is extremely important in this position.
Yeah, so a couple of things for folks out there, if they're trying to do this on their own, to watch for then would be, you want a contractor that is detailed. You want a contractor that, you've got good instinctual vibes with them. They seem to have the right answers, but at the same time, it's up to you to put together some scopes of work or hold them accountable to providing you a scope of work before you give them a dollar. Yeah. You want a contract in place with them that outlines the time frame and the materials and everything. Yep. So there's a lot of detail work that Mr. Barry Hines does. It's not just going out there and finding a guy who says, yeah, I'll put some flooring in, okay, and then hiring them. I mean, we hold people accountable based on scopes of work and actual true contracts. Yeah,
having a very defined payment schedule is one of the most important things also, because people can lose faith really quick if they are expecting to be paid at point A and my point A or whatever is different than yours. So So our contracts are, fairly involved. They've gotten a little longer throughout the years, but at the same time, the core principle is, here's what you'll be paid up front, here's what you'll be paid here, when it's roughly halfway, and here's what you'll be paid upon the completion of the project. And, we varied a little bit. For the most part, we like to give our contractors enough up front to where we don't want them to suffer. It's a team game. So, giving them a nice, healthy chunk up front to where they're not going to have to be picking out of their own pockets to be able to complete a job is very important to me.
Yeah.
So we've always kind of done that, and thank you for that, by the way. But yeah, just keeping the guys, moving along and happy makes it to where when tough times come, when you've got a buyer who delays on something and funding gets a little slower than what you anticipated, they're willing to stick by you,
right?
Because they know the next project's coming and that you've never missed a bill.
So we've got a lot of flexibility because of the volume and relationships that we have, and that's always appreciated. And when we talk about property management in here on these past podcasts, we always talk about what a thankless business it is. Oh, yeah. But it's the same thing for those contractors too. It's a thankless business. And so if you can make your contractor feel appreciated, if they're good, it's very important. You got to keep them happy. Barry comes to me all the time and tells me what we need to do in order to keep these guys happy. At the end of the day, we've got a contract that outlines what we should do and when we should do it. But, we have these relationships, and it's about keeping the relationships healthy and happy too.
Yeah, I mean, we're just still people. Exceptions can and have to be made on occasion. One contractor, picked up a side job that's just killing them, and you have to be flexible with them, a little bit here or there, but easing the stress for them, just like anybody. I mean, they're essentially, I've got 5 or 6 other project managers that work for us, not just hired guys that we pay hourly that I have to worry about whether they're showing up, whether they're sick, whether they got in a fight with their wife last night and they're going to show up for work tomorrow, whatever it might be. Our GCs that work with us that like we alluded to have been with us for so long are my eyes and ears, and ultimately those issues become their problem, and which is a big piece of running the contracting part of our company, because if I were to have to, worry about all of those small issues with some of these hourly workers, that would become, very difficult. So.
Yeah, so that kind of speaks to the setup and the structure of how we do things. We have hourly people, and we have a large staff and all kinds of subcontractors and then full general contractors. We are a licensed and bonded general contractor, but we still hire a licensed and bonded general contractor to manage each project on our big rehabs. It's different on the property management side, where we do a lot of more in-house stuff.
Yeah, completely different ballgame, yeah.
But instead of us hiring 100 laborers and paying them hourly and Barry running around and general contracting each house, we hire they're experts. I mean, they're legitimate, true experts, general contractors with their own staffs. And you can set that up differently. I mean, if you're doing one project every 3 months and you're a small-time investor.
Just get a couple guys.
Correct.
Yeah.
You can do it a lot of different ways. But in order to get the best product at the best price, this is the structure that works for companies like ours. And we see the same structure across the United States. There's a group in Detroit that we visited that was really interesting. They bought a warehouse, and they were storing toilets and, flooring and all of those things. And then, each morning they would send out their crews, their trucks would scatter with, the job. And I'm convinced that they were actually spending more for all those headaches. I really am convinced they were spending more.
We've tinkered with the idea of becoming, the supplier, where we're getting contracts where we're buying, bulk flooring. We've instead decided, there are companies in place that already do this,
right?
And they can warehouse it for us. We don't have to pay the warehousing space,
right?
Perfect instance would be our flooring provider. He warehouses it all. We don't pay a dime.
Right.
When we need something picked up, we call in an order. They either deliver it or we just go pick it up.
Yeah, at our volume, we're able to have the suppliers basically be our warehouse for us, and we ask them to keep it X amount on hand so that anytime our people need to run out there and grab it, it's there for them.
Right.
And it's pretty simple. All right, so there's no silver bullet in order to just find a perfect contractor, though. It's basically you've got to try them out.
Certainly, had some misses along the way. Never anything catastrophically bad.
No. We've had a lot of contractors run off with money. I shouldn't say a lot. We've had a few run off with money. We've had a lot of subcontractor issues over the years. There's all the normal stories you would hear. I mean, it genuinely is herding cats.
Yeah. I can only think of one person who ever walked off with their money, which I think,
maybe.
Yeah.
I've had a few outside of
but
here.
For the most part, we've gotten, what we paid for out of the guys.
Sure.
And now, the product, occasionally is not quite up to snuff. And we have to send somebody in behind them to make sure it's, of our standard. But for the most part, that hasn't been a big issue. If you worry about somebody robbing from you, the easiest way for a contractor to rob from you, and I don't mean to get off on a tangent here, would definitely be to steal your time.
Right.
Our projects, if there's anything that needs constant improvement, it's the timeliness of getting all the work done, because some of these houses that we're doing do require a lot of work, and usually we set pretty aggressive timelines. We're hoping to get done in 60 days. Going over that, obviously costs everybody.
Right.
So that's what you have to really watch, I think.
Yeah, for individuals to do the size of projects that we do at 60 days is, even if you hire it all out, it just really isn't possible unless you've got the teams that we have, and even we struggle with these aggressive timelines. But I think if once you've got the right contractors, a lot of those things will fall in place. And building a relationship and keeping those relationships when you have a good contractor, to me, is the most important thing.
Right.
And so now let's say we've got a great contractor. How do you come up with the rehab plan, to get started on this?
Okay.
It's a pretty vague question.
It is. Okay.
What do you replace? How do you come up with a budget? What finish level?
Well, we are somewhat, we alluded to this a little bit earlier, but we'll be a little more specific now. We do try to churn out a very consistent product. Although every house is different and will have its own set of problems. obviously, you start with, mechanically what's wrong, physically what's wrong with the structure. Do we have a roof we need to do, gutters we need to do? Those items are going to have to be done. The finish level, we are generally down to the point where we do 2 different finishes. And, we're still kind of hanging on a little bit of the beige, trend that was.
We've talked about this
so
on
popular.
The podcast.
Yeah, there's some certain colors that maybe I'm just, too familiar with that I still like. But,
and just so you folks listening understand why this is such a point is we try to be production builders. So we try to pick a paint color, we try to pick a flooring, and then we do it across the board. And so making a paint color change can basically be a domino effect where then you have to change the flooring color to match, and then you have to change the countertop colors to match. And we genuinely try to be a production builder where every house looks the same and we're done. So paint color is a big conversation.
I think I lost sleep when we changed to gray.
Yeah.
So,
and this is every 10 years at most that we change.
So we were rocking realist beige forever. Yep. I still think it's a good color. My basement's that color.
Yep.
But only time we use it now is if we walk into a house and many salvageable pieces,
wood,
or have
trim.
Either a wood trim
Yep.
or some kind of a brown tile, or something like that. That's like, we would wrestle this perfectly good thing out of this property for no other reason besides a little bit of consistency. We can roll with what we've got and make it nice and new and fresh. Still, there are going to be some salvageable pieces in each of these houses. Not all.
Right.
Most do have some salvageable pieces, and picking out a few of those to help, kind of dictate which finish we're going to do, whether it be the white and gray or the tan and brown type of family.
So you're saying come up with a standard, but be flexible and order on certain projects a little bit.
It's just, and maybe it's just,
maybe you're just in love with realist beige.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite that. It's more, I like to, save something that I think is a cool feature of a house or already in really good shape. Undoing something just for the sake of uniformity is a step in the wrong direction. Let's get it done. Let's make it nice. Let's move on to the next one.
In order to be profitable in this business,
and that's part of it too.
It's you can't make these like the Taj Mahal, like you're moving in. And if certain aspects of the property work and they're good, you shouldn't replace them. It's just not smart. You want to maximize your returns. This is business. This isn't you moving into a house and, keeping the missus happy. Happy wife equals a happy life at home.
Yeah.
This isn't that. This is a business where these are, I hate to say it this way, but they're trinkets that create a return. They need to be good trinkets. They need to be standardized. And the materials need to be good and long lasting, which is another question. So those materials, I know it's taken us, many years to really pinpoint the right materials to use that have the best cost to lifespan, ratio. How do you go about picking products like that?
Well, we've evolved a lot. There was, in the beginning, it was a lot of, rolled vinyl and carpeting. It was kind of the standard for most rentals, and that wasn't just for us. It was kind of industry wide. Obviously, everyone's jumped on the vinyl plank bandwagon, which for good reason. The stuff's we buy a pretty nice, nice mid grade luxury vinyl plank that's. We test it out in our office. So
vinyl plank flooring comes in across the board costs and everything else, and for vinyl plank to work in an offices have a lot of traffic. Commercial use of it really is a great way to test out a product. And so we put the same stuff that we put in all of our rehabs in our own office here and did all the floors in it. And, it's kind of neat when folks come to town and, our clients come to town, we say, well, what you're walking on right now is the flooring that's in your houses.
Right.
And this is a very nice office in here. So it's, we put a product that looks great. It would go great in my own home. It goes great in our beautiful office. But at the same time, it's very cost effective. So finding that balance, I know, is tough, and it's taken experience and a lot of time, I guess.
Well, it has. And, we do the very best that we can for what hand we're dealt. Every house, like we're saying, is a little different. if we were to go out and buy a bunch of seedy houses in terrible neighborhoods, and our margin was just this enormous whale of a margin, and hey, we can do everything we want to this. Sure, I'll pull out everything. We'll retrim, but in order to provide a quality product and for us to be able to stay in business, we've got to pick our spots a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we want something that's going to be durable. The vinyl plank, we've exclusively gone to that in the main traffic areas. We won't put down anything else at this point, through the kitchen, hallways, living rooms.
I'd love to put it throughout the whole house, but the problem for our market is it's cold in the winters here.
It is. And
people don't want vinyl plank in their bedrooms. Even if you say, well, they can throw a rug down. People want carpeted bedrooms here in this market. It's just the way it is.
That has been the feedback from leasing. Yes. And we do listen to that part of the company as well. And we've had to tailor some certain things toward leasing because we're hearing, browns are not, necessarily what people are looking for. They like these gray colors.
It was time to change.
It was. So, yeah.
So, you talked about in our houses having to kind of select what gets done and making the most out of what's there. There's a supplier in Chicago that's similar to us, and we went up and saw some of his properties, and they literally gut every house. Like even if it's doable, they just gut it. But they're selling houses for $500,000.
Well, yeah,
it's just a different price point. And these starter homes in middle America markets like us, Cleveland, even Jacksonville, Florida, the smart money is making do with what's there and maximizing it and turning it into a production builder type product that you can repeat over and over.
Yeah, that's the idea. It's a very finesse type of thing when you're trying to, and a lot of times it blows up in your face. If you try to save something that you think is, hey, these are salvageable, we can definitely get through with it. And then it becomes listening to the guys that we have on site and adjusting to make sure that, we're not cutting a corner so badly that we're going to sacrifice the quality that we strive to get.
Right.
So that's the big thing.
Right. Well, that brings us to another thing. When you're wrapping up these rehabs, the next thing is we do this a little differently than most groups out there and most even individuals is we don't do the inspection at the beginning when we buy a house. We do it after we've rehabbed it. Right. So that's once we've finished the rehab, then we start the inspection process. So tell everybody at home how we handle that.
Okay, so we've worked with a few different inspectors throughout the years.
Yeah, these are third party, full on arm's length inspectors that don't work for us. These are true third party inspectors, licensed, licensed inspectors, bonded, and all of those things that we want to come in and we want them to see it all. That's part of the point.
Yeah. So
you don't want to have an inspector that will just bend to your will. You want a legitimate third-party inspector.
Well, yeah, obviously, it has to be for this to be a fair process.
Right.
So, a home inspector is going to come in and do his job, which is to pick out literally every small thing that could possibly be wrong with a house. And, each inspector has their own things they really latch on to. I remember an inspector that we used to work with.
Caulks.
I'm not going to go there. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, he like in any room, if there was like even a slight blemish in the caulking around like your kitchen sink, like the slightest blemish, he would call it out.
Yeah, he was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But no, so we have that inspector out when we think we're truly done. I've usually walked the house prior to this inspection taking place. Regardless of how
Meaning you walked it with the contractor?
Yeah, just making sure that the contracted work that we
right.
are paying for is complete.
So the work is complete.
Yes.
And then you have the inspector out.
There are occasional time where an inspector will get out before me and there'll be a couple surprises left on that didn't get it done. Hey,
but for the most part,
plumbing's not turned on to the water heater or something like that. But anyway, yes. For the most part, we've already done our first walk. We think everything's looking good. We have that inspector out to test all the systems.
Okay.
They're really good at trying to replicate actual living conditions, filling up tubs, letting them drain fully, things like that. So we get back that first inspection report, and there's always a list. And so then we get to work. And this is, part of the process, depending on what is found and what the inspector has decided he wants to, tap in on, can take, a couple of weeks,
Sure.
Longer, which really eats into that 60-day turnaround. Right. But getting that inspection report back, and, we are pretty much to the point where we're doing 95 to 99, maybe 100% of every repair that is possibly listed on there.
Yeah.
Then there's a little gray area here and there where, yes, he has to call something out, but, where it might be a grandfathered electrical thing or, something like that. But for the most part, it's just, get the list and start going.
Over time, we've learned just to shut up and just fix it. It's not worth the battles. It's not, you just take what your lumps. And so basically, when we get a house, Barry Hines walks it, puts together kind of a scope of work. He has multiple of our contractors put together their bids and their scope of works. So Barry is looking for everything he can find in the house that needs replaced. The contractors are going through it, looking at everything that might need fixed and replaced. Then, after that whole process is done and it's walked with Barry and the contractor to make sure they caught everything that they can, we have a third-party inspector go out, walk the property, make sure that they caught everything that they can. And then many of our clients order their own third-party inspector too after even that. So we've got all these different eyeballs on these properties to get it through. And the more that's missed during the beginning stages, the worse it is for Barry. So it's very important when you're rehabbing properties, or for groups like us who rehab properties, it's to catch everything you can up front. Yep. You never will. There's always going to be little things that fall through and slip through, but that's the process from rehab, basically from start to finish. And so the start is finding good contractors. I wish we had an easy answer for you for how to do this, but we just don't. It's going through the good ones and holding on to getting rid of the bad ones and holding on to the good ones as much as you can. Don't let them out of your sight. Hold on to them. Hold them dear. Treat them like they're your best friend, because good contractors are rare. And when you get them, hold on to them. Then it's coming up with the rehab plan is the next step. And that takes a little bit of experience to know, because during that rehab plan, you're going to come up with the materials and the what to replace and what not to replace. And that takes a lot of experience. It helps if you start using standardized materials. We believe that you can get a consistent, better product if you just use the same thing, because if you're swapping out materials, sometimes you'll have trouble with those. Once you've found a good material at a good price, stick to it and keep building on that. And then last, it's once you're done, we suggest getting third-party inspectors to check your own work. Yep. People say it's a waste of our money. I've had all kinds of people in our line of work that almost nobody does it, in our business. We're one of the only groups that does that.
Provide that inspection.
Correct.
Well, and then the re-inspection to follow too.
Correct. So it's 2 inspections. Yeah. And but we believe in that. It's a great way to really make sure your product is A+ level at the end. So if you're an individual out there doing it, I even suggest it for you. It's going to tell you what you've got to deal with. And then, with us, we then slap a warranty on the property and then, send it over to the property management side. And then the tenant will find even more things. And then we cover those. And so it's a process to flush a property out. So don't, it doesn't end until a tenant has been in there for a few months, basically. You don't know you've made it all the way through it, because little stuff will come up.
Yes.
And that's not the end of the world. It just, things shake out after.
Truly replicating actual living in a house is, you can check everything you want. And, I've always said the story with the shower where there's a hairline crack in a shower stall, and, every inspector, every contractor that went in there runs the shower, everything's fine. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, every time the tenant gets in and they step out of the shower and there's water on the floor. Okay, well, what's going on? It's like, well, apparently there's a hairline crack in the shower stall, and the only way that it opened wide enough for water to seep through is
if you're standing
in it. So unless our contractors are showering in our properties, there's just no way to, that's always kind of been my go-to to say, hey, there's going to be a few more surprises, and that's why we do our bumper to bumper for the 6 months and cover all that. So
yeah, we really put out a good product. And a lot of that is thanks to you and the heart that you put into it and the attention to detail that you give. And a lot of that, really, we need to give a shout out to our contractors. We're very, very blessed and very lucky to have such a great group of GCs and all their teams and all of our subcontractors. We've got some really great inspectors. I know they give Barry headaches, but that's the whole point.
Fair.
They're fair. And so basically, overall, once you've got contractors, a rehab plan, the rehab materials picked out and then inspected, once you've got the good people in that process, I think that's the number one point, is holding on to all the good people that work in that process and letting go of the bad, replacing with good. And before you know it, you'll have a whole team. So anyway, well, thanks for joining us.
No problem.
And thanks at home. This was the Homeboys podcast, and we'll see you next time.